parents, welcome back to another edition of Teenager Tuesday, episode 177, creeping up on 200. And we're in part 2 of Majoring in Motherhood with Emily Shue. Hello, Emily.
Hi, Will.
How are you?
I'm good.
I don't believe we said this last episode. If you missed last week, we kind of started this conversation based off of the book that you wrote that was released in April. And I don't think that we said how people can get your book.
Yes, you can find it on Amazon. That's probably the easiest. It's also on my publisher's website, Cruciform Press, but Amazon's probably the most.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Just go on Amazon.
Yeah, Majoring in Motherhood.
Majoring in Motherhood by Emily Shue, but spell your last name.
S-C-H-U-C-H.
Yes, S-C-H-U-C-h. Easy.
Yeah, no big
Never mispronounced at any point.
Never pronounced right.
That's awesome. Like I said, we're talking through just different points and chapters of your book and kind of getting insight, which this is a very summarized version of things. And obviously we can get into all of the stories of it. But, obviously feel free to share stories as we go throughout. We kind of ended last week talking about a chapter that you wrote on fear and kind of moving now to another portion that we thought would be good to talk about is this idea of sacrifice, of you do give up a lot. And parents that are listening, middle school, high school, I've had to give up some stuff. Yeah. But maybe sometimes we do things without analyzing. It's kind of like I have a feeling, but I don't know why I feel this way. Or maybe there's parents out there who have sacrificed, but like last week you talked about this theology of fear. And so maybe there's sacrifice, but we don't have this maybe defined understanding of why we're sacrificing or what that sacrifice means, you know? So, take it away. Sacrifice.
Yeah. I think this chapter kind of just focuses on just the way that having kids changes your life and the things that you do give up, which I think there's a lot of negativity around that in the culture, right? Of like, well, I'm free. I don't have to give up these things if I don't have kids or whatever. But I think people kind of either want to just focus on motherhood or having kids is a joy or a blessing, and they don't want to talk about why it's hard or the sacrifices because it feels like we're complaining or we're diminishing it, or we do just want to focus on it's so hard, and we do kind of lose sight of the vision of that and the purpose of that. And so this chapter is really just looking at, okay, but what is sacrifice? Sacrifice just means to relinquish something in order to gain something else. And nobody sacrifices things that they care about, right? Their freedom, their bodies, their money, whatever. A lot of the ways that having kids does limit your life. Nobody gives up those things. I mean, I think it does become, we're having kids because this is what we're supposed to do. But ultimately, like, nobody gives up those things because unless they value what they get more than what they gave up, or else it would be a foolish sacrifice. So it's just kind of looking at the idea that, okay, talking about the sacrifice of motherhood or parenthood, having kids, isn't to complain about it. It's actually to elevate the worth of what you're doing, because it's to say, I value my children and the investment that I'm making more than my own personal comfort, my ease, my freedom, or whatever. And so it's actually to uplift it and to say that this is more worthwhile and valuable than all of this. And then to look at, okay, what does, the life of sacrifice, what does this point me towards Christ? That Christ lived a life of sacrifice from beginning to end, and that all of our sacrifices are imperfect and done imperfect, not with always the best attitude, and pale in comparison to what he gave up, which was, from beginning to end, giving up heaven to put on flesh and come down and to serve and to wash our feet, and so I think if you lose sight of why it matters, why it's worth it, and then you lose sight of, this is making me holy because it's making me more like Christ, and I'm learning more, and then I'm pointed to worship him because I'm seeing oh, everything that I'm doing, is nothing compared to what he did.
Yeah.
But in some small way, I am becoming more like Christ, and I'm showing my children that sacrifice and giving up your freedom isn't just, it's not just like a downer. It's actually beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's what we're called to do, is to deny ourselves and take up our cross and follow Christ.
Yeah, that's true. It'd probably be a lot easier for God if he didn't create us. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's kind of the same idea of like you were saying, it's kind of popular to say, well, life's just a lot easier, or you have a lot more freedom if you just don't have kids.
Yeah.
And yet, the way God created us, by and large, for most people, I'm not saying everybody, but for most people, God's purpose is to multiply, whether that be through adoption or biological or whatever. And there is just so much purpose and growth found in sacrifice. And a lot of parents listening, you have sacrificed. Yep. You might be growing weary of sacrificing. And so maybe, if nothing else, this is a reminder of like there is purpose behind what you're doing, and keep sacrificing. Which kind of moves to what would you say to moms and dads out there who feel incredibly weak? They do feel like, man, I've been sacrificing for my kids, my family for so long, and now I'm just tired, or like I'm just in this state of I do just feel weak right now.
Yeah, I think definitely the sacrificing and just parenthood in general, it's going to reveal your weakness. I went through a phase when I had like 3, probably around maybe before I started writing the book, where nobody was sleeping. I think I had postpartum depression, and I was just seeing like how frail, like limited I really was. Like I was like, I can't even operate without sleep. It's just like it exposes your limitations, and then the fact that you're like, oh, I thought I could do this, but I'm taken out by one night of bad sleep, and so it's going to expose your weakness physically, especially in the little years, and just spiritually, as it exposes that you maybe weren't as kind and patient as you thought you were. So in that chapter, I really get into the verse of Jeremiah 17, where it says, cursed is the man who trusts in himself. I think it's like he's like a bush in the wastelands. But blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. He is like a tree planted by the stream root. I'm not remembering, but sends out its roots by the stream, and it never fails to bear fruit. So just the contrast there of trusting in ourselves versus trusting in the Lord and putting our confidence in him. And the world wants to tell us, you're enough, you have enough, you can do it, and just kind of pick yourself up and do it. But as I was a mom, and especially in these tough years, was like, I'm coming to the end of myself, and actually I'm seeing I can't do it, and I don't have what it takes, and I'm not enough. And so it can be really defeating if that's kind of what you're going with. Like, well, I feel like this bush in the wastelands. I don't feel like it. But that then when we come to the Lord in our weakness, that's actually when, God loves to work through weak people. He loves to fill needy people. And so
seems like the preference.
Right? And so that's actually, when you're feeling that way, that's actually a prime opportunity for the Lord to use you, because then, he gets the glory. And
I love that perspective of feeling empty too. It's like in James, the book of James says, where do fights and quarrels among you begin? It begins from within. So it's talking about this idea of if you say something and it's rude, or you're impatient, and you might have the thought, I don't know where that came from. Well, it came from in you. So sometimes even just going, like, not that it's fun, but getting to that empty point reveals what is in you. And helps us again have this realization of, I need, my roots have to be in God, because like if I never feel weak, sometimes it's hard for us to even recognize our need for God.
Yes, exactly. It exposes so much of your weakness, your sin, what's really in your heart that you maybe didn't really know.
Driving reveals what's in my heart for me.
For
me. I live off 380. It's great.
Oh, gosh. Yes. My condolences.
I feel like I complain about it too much. The two things I think I talk about the most on this podcast is food and driving on 380.
Well,
yeah.
We just went up there the other night, so yeah, I don't blame you.
No. Well, Emily, thank you for this week. We're going to keep talking next week. Make sure that you tune in. We're going to keep the conversation going. For now, parents, remember, you can do this. You're not alone. God is with you, and so are we. Have a great week.